Starfront Scouting Academy is an area control, print and play, roll and write from Shiny Pigeon Printables. All that is needed to play are the sheets, a uniquely colored pen for each player, I chose markers to show up on the dark print, and 5 dice with one unique color amongst them. It's easy to learn, quick to play, yet it's one of the most interactive roll and writes I've come across. Let's get into it. To set up, you'll need one copy of the equipment selection board, one copy of the planetary map, and each player will need a scouting exam sheet. Roll all 5 dice, and place the 4 dice of the same color on the outer spaces of the equipment selection board. Place the one uniquely colored die on the middle space of the equipment selection board. This is called the scout space. The final exams have brought you and your fellow planetary scouting cadets to an uninhabited planet with a toxic atmosphere that you've been tasked with analyzing remotely. You'll unlock new skills throughout the game as you build your proficiency with available reconnaissance equipment, rovers, drones, hovercrafts, and buggies. If you're having issues with the equipment, you can also utilize the state-of-the-art Scout K9 companion droids in a pinch. Claim the most strategic sections of the map and score points for charting the alien terrain to become the top of your class. Throughout the course of the game, players will take turns selecting dice from the equipment selection sheet in order to mark a space on the central planetary map. Players compete for majorities in certain numeric values, to be the first to complete certain patterns, and to create large groups that are orthogonally adjacent on the map. The player who most recently used a map is the starting player and marks a star next to their student ID on the scouting exam sheet. Each turn involves 4 steps. The first step is the option of using an unlocked terrain action. As you mark terrain on the planetary map, you'll mark an X or O in the corresponding category on the terrain track found on your scouting exam sheet. These must be marked from left to right. In step 1, you're allowed to cross off any O's marked here to perform the ability associated with that terrain. At the start of the game, you won't have any, so you can skip this step. Once you do, you're allowed to use one of these abilities at the start of your turn. The mountain terrain action allows you to set 1 die to any number. The dune terrain action allows you to re-roll 1 to 4 of the outer dice. The river terrain action allows you to swap any 2 outer dice, and the forest terrain action allows you to mark the same number and terrain again on your turn. Just keep in mind that each terrain action that you do not use will be worth 1 point at the end of the game. Step 2. Select a terrain and generate a number. There are 4 different types of equipment, each corresponding to colored terrain on the map. Each of them has its own routine for generating a number. All of them involve selecting a die or dice from the corners of that action space. If you choose the gray equipment, you'll generate your number by adding 5 to the die's value. We get 11 here. Note that terrain spaces on the map range from 0 to 9. Anytime you have a number higher than 9, you're simply going to drop the tens place. This 11 becomes a 1. With that in mind, I can mark any gray 1 space on the map. If I choose the orange equipment, I choose 2 dice, subtract the lower value from the higher value, and mark a dune space of the corresponding number on the map. In this case, my value is 3. If I choose the pink space, I'm simply going to add the 2 numbers together. If I choose the blue space, I'm going to choose a die and use its value. If there happens to be 2 dice of the same value available, I can take both of them and mark 2 spaces on the map. If a chosen number is not available in the selected terrain, you may mark any terrain instead. If the chosen number is not available in any terrain, you can mark any number in that terrain instead. So let's say I chose orange. 4 minus 1 equals 3. I'll mark a 3 on the map. Next, you'll need to re-roll all the dice used to generate your number and return them to the equipment selection board in clockwise ascending order. Note that the scout die will always be placed in the middle. Then record your progress on the scouting exam sheet. Add a tally mark in the matching space in the numbers section. Also, mark the matching space on the terrain track. If you have completed any of the available patterns, mark the golden trophy underneath that pattern and announce this to all other players. Players completing that pattern in a subsequent round will earn the second place rewards, marked with a silver trophy. Remember that since the scout die is in the middle of the map, it is in the corner of all 4 action spaces. You can use it just like any other die, but when you do, don't forget that you need to mark off a scout space on your scout track. You'll earn points at the end of the game based on the number of unused spaces on the scout die track. Roll the dice like you normally would, but the scout die will always go in the middle, regardless of the values. In a 2 to 3 player game, the end of the game is triggered when any one line, row, column, or corner to corner is completed. In a 4 to 6 player game, it takes 2 completed lines. Finish out the current round so that all players have taken an equal number of turns and then move on to final scoring. Numbers. Players score based on the majorities in each row in the numbers section. Scoring is marked to the right of each row. In a 2-player game only, there are no points for second place. If there is a tie, all tied players score the full points. Put your total in the numbers score box. Next is terrain. For each terrain type, score 3 points if you've marked it 4 times, or 5 points if you've marked it 5 times. Put your total in the terrain's score box. Next is patterns. Total up points earned for your patterns and include them in the pattern score box. Remember, you can only score each pattern once. Finally, end of mission scoring. Score 1 point per mark in your biggest connected group. Spaces must share at least one side to be considered connected. Score 3 points if you have the biggest connected group, or are tied. Score 1 point per mark in the line that finishes the game. Score 1 point per unused terrain action that you circled but didn't fill in. Score 1 point per unused scout space on your scout track. Total all that up, and the player with the most points wins. So that's the game, Starfront Scouting Academy. Yeah, I think it really delivers on the area control part of it. It is very interactive for a roll and write game, which in most cases, you pretty much ignore what the other players are doing and write on your own sheet. I had a lot of fun with the patterns, trying to find the patterns and trying to race to the patterns. It is difficult to spot them when the board gets crowded, especially the ones that have spaces in between the markings. And sometimes my opponent was much closer to it than I thought they were. But there is this really neat element of defense you can play if you are aware of what they're doing and just plugging in certain spots that would divide up their patterns or break up large orthogonal groups that are adjacent. And that can feel kind of clever too. It adds another layer of decision. And there are plenty of layers of decision here because there's so many different scoring mechanisms that value different choices. So for example, playing to the game board is a big part of this, but also going for the numerical majorities is another part of it. While my biggest complaint is really just the dark pages, it's hard to see anything other than a Sharpie on the page. I also like the art, and I think it makes it feel like more of a complete game. I like the scout die a lot. I think it adds a nice option as kind of a fallback, but at the same time, it is a consideration. It's like, is it worth the penalty of losing the potential points at the end of the game? The different mathematical equations that you have to do for each space become a little tough, become a little tedious at sometimes because there's a lot of different possibilities with the scout die added as a third option. The biggest one for me was the blue. If you can get a double in the blue column, you get to activate twice, which is cool. But what happened with that was it became a little bit more random. Is the other player going to roll that double for me before my turn? Or it became a game of chicken. Like, I don't want to risk rolling a die associated with blue because then my opponent could get 2 activations. It seemed like a big boon. Now, most of the times when we chose that, it wasn't for strategic placement. It was more just, I want to get more value out of my action. And that makes sense. The train action was really impactful. While you get points for not using them at the end of the game, using them makes a big difference in your selections. And I didn't realize the importance of that at the beginning of the game. But later on, when you're trying to find that last piece to the puzzle or that last piece to the pattern, it became really helpful. So keep an eye on those. Finally, this game is pretty easy to teach. It's a really simple concept of picking dice and drawing on the map, and then everything here happens kind of automatically based on those decisions. If you start out the game and keep it as simple as this is what we're doing, you're going to discover the scoring mechanisms as you go through the game. And they are laid out pretty well on the sheet, where as you're waiting for your turn to come up, you can be reading through those and kind of figuring it out as you go too. So the game is short enough where a learning game is possible, and then we're going to play the real game after that. And I think it's totally appropriate to do so, because all you got to do is print out some more paper. So I did enjoy this Starfront Scouting Academy. Keep an eye out for it on crowdfunding. It's coming very soon, if not already. This is an impressive feat of interaction in roll and write, and I really like it.